الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وإذا بشر أحدهم بالأنثى ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم. The first of our salawat and honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. One more request for the brothers to move closer to the front. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The discussion concerning the rights of children is a fundamental discussion in Islamic thought, and a discussion which requires a thorough analysis, for it is a discussion which affects each and every one of our lives. When one examines the Quran is replete with examples of prophetic figures whose story is mentioned alongside the story of their children. The aim of mentioning their children is to allow us to be able to reflect on their relationship with their children, on the different trials and tribulations that they faced with their children, on the different pieces of advice that they gave their children, and their relationship with their children. Hence, if you were to study the story of Adam, or the study of Noah, or the study of Shu'aib's story, or indeed the study of Ibrahim, you'd find that God doesn't just mention the prophetic figures alone, but mentions the children alongside them. For example, Prophet Adam and his sons, Prophet Ibrahim and his sons, Prophet Shu'aib and his daughters. All of the children are mentioned in order that we are able to understand and reflect upon their relationship. That's why you find when you examine each of these stories, some of these relationships indicate a period of trial, others indicate a period of ease. And that's why the Quran sets out two fundamental principles about our children. One principle is that our children are a glory for us in this world, without a shadow of doubt. As the Quran states, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Al-Malu wal-Banuna zinatul hayat dunya. Your wealth and your children are the zina of this world. They are the glory of this world. They are the embellishment for you of this world. They are a source of pride for you in this world. Yet at the same time, the Quran states a second principle. إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ. Your wealth and your children are also a trial from us. Notice how on the one hand, a person may see their child as a blessing, and on the other hand, another may see their child as a trial. And you may even find that in your life, that you may begin with a child that is a trial for you, and end up having that child as a blessing. Or you may begin with a child who's a blessing for you, and end up with the biggest of trials with that child. And that's why you find that God makes it clear within the Holy Quran that we will test you with your wealth, we will test you with your health, we will test you with your children. That when God seeks to test us in our life, amongst the different areas which God will use as intermediaries to test the human being is through your children. That's why I remember hearing a story recently about a couple who had tried for years to have a child. Every year in their marriage they would try to have a child, but they couldn't have one. until after years of being married, God gave them twins. When God gave them twins, they saw this as a blessing for them in their life. But upon the giving of the birth of the twins, one of the twins died, and they were left with one child. Still, they saw that one child as a blessing. One day, while the mother of this child was trying to fix curtains in the house, she had left the child on the sofa. As she was fixing these curtains, she fell awkwardly on the child, and the child passed away. You find that here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one way had given a blessing towards that family, that for years they couldn't have a child, but eventually they had their child, but then that child became a trial for them. And that's why when you examine some of the prophets of God in the Quran, some of them didn't have a child for many years. To us, that may be a trial, but in the vision of Allah, that may have been a blessing. As in Prophet Zakaria did not have a child until very old age. Prophet Ibrahim did not have a child until very old age. Our holy Prophet could not have a son. Every time he'd have a son, the son would die, until Allah eventually gave him a daughter. The point being that every human being, when they are given that child in their life may act as a trial for them, or that child in their life may act as a blessing for them. And that's why the verse which I have chosen at the beginning of my lecture is a verse which is used to examine the reform of the rights of children in Islamic thought. The verse, what does it state? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. When they are told of the news of a female, their faces darken with grief. I'd like to examine this in light of the examination of the rights of children in Islam. And I'm going to examine this in 4 stages. Number 1, why did their faces darken with grief when they heard the news of a daughter? Number 2, what was the problem with the female as a child in Arabian society? Number 3, how did the Prophet change this through his behavior with children? And number 4, what are the rights of children according to Islamic thought? And how can we embed them, be we parents today or parents in the future? Let's examine this and try to dissect the topic. The verse clearly states that when these people heard news of a daughter in their life, they were suddenly overcome with a sense of grief. As in the Quran said, وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا. Muswaddan means what? Means their faces have suddenly darkened when they heard the news of a daughter. Someone comes forward and states, why is it that whenever the Quran talks about a bad incident or somebody who's not that good, it says their face is darkened? Their faces are darkened doesn't mean that their faces literally darken. It means that light of purity, which originally was on their faces, has now been removed from them. Because the human being, when they are born with a pure light from their face. They are born infallible. It's that human being who can bring darkness onto their face. You find the Arabs, when they would hear news that their wife has given birth to a daughter, you would find that straight away their faces would darken. As the Quran says in chapter 16, verse 58. In the next verse it says, what would they do when they've heard this news? They would go from one tent to the other, asking themselves, should we keep the child in disgrace or bury it in the dust? Look at that mentality. We either will think to ourselves, we'll keep it, but in a state of disgrace, or there is dust in front of us, why not simply just bury that child in the dust? The question arises, why did the Arabs feel so unhappy when they received news of having a daughter? There were 3 main reasons. The first reason was because they thought to themselves, this daughter cannot help me on the battlefield when I'm fighting another tribe. Because you know, in the Arab society, pre-Islam, if another tribe got on your nerves, what's the way to resolve this? A court case? You must be joking. You get your sword, I'll get my sword, and let's just come and combat each other. Whoever kills the other wins. And if it needs to happen in 2 weeks' time, we'll do exactly the same. It was a lawless society. There was no concept of legal system. Because when a religion seeks to introduce a legal system into society, it seeks to regulate the boundaries for the human being. Because this being, if you let him loose, can destroy a society. In one moment, Hiroshima can happen again and again and again. Religion sought to carve out regulations for the human being. You found that with these people, they said this girl will not help us in war, as in if that tribe across the road are a tribe who are going to attack us, our daughter isn't going to pick up a sword and fight them. This daughter will help us in no way whatsoever. It's better that we bury her in the dust, number one. Number two, you found the second reason their faces darkened with grief when they heard the news of a daughter was because they thought to themselves, we are businessmen as Arabs, and we pride ourselves on being businessmen. We have traveled fi shita'i was safe towards Yemen and Syria. We have fairs to go to. We have sons to represent us. These girls aren't going to represent us. What trade and business do they know? What industry do they know? There is no way they'll increase our businesses and no profits will be made. It's better that we bury this girl within the dust. That was the second reason. The third reason, what would it be? They would say that we fear there's a day this girl will get married. We fear there's a day this girl will get married, and she might get married to a tribe which we despise. Are you telling me that we're going to have to be in-laws with them? And I'm going to have the embarrassment that my daughter gives children to that tribe, when that tribe is a tribe who I absolutely despise? Because you know the Arabs would pride themselves on who their daughters marry. If this daughter one day ran away and she ended up marrying someone out of a love relationship, I would have to face the embarrassment from the members of my tribe that my daughter has ended up marrying somebody else. So what's the best option for me? The best option for me is that I bury her alive. And you find that some of the Sahaba of Rasulullah, some of the most renowned companions of the Holy Prophet, were amongst those who remembered those days. And they admitted that it affected them. Umar ibn al-Khattab himself would admit that in his days of Jahiliyyah, he was affected by this particular incident. Because when they asked him, what do you remember about the days of Jahiliyyah? He said, I remember that in the days of Jahiliyyah, we used to have two things. One would make me smile, and one would make me cry. The one that would make me smile, what would it be? We used to worship an idol made out of dates. An idol made out of dates. He said, when we worship this idol made out of dates, what we would do is, as we bow down to the idol, nobody's looking, I take a date and eat it. He said, before you know it, God was dead within an hour. Like everybody had taken a date, and before you know it, you're looking around, there is no more God over there. And I wish that was only the days of Jahiliyyah. As in, we live in 2009, 2010 now, we think the human being has become intellectual. Go to certain parts of the world and see what they worship. And then you tell me if the intellect has gone forward or if it's gone backwards. Yet what you find, he said that when I remember that I smile, that I used to worship a God made out of dates. As I bow down to it, I steal a date and eat it. Within an hour, that God is dead. He said, but then there is something which used to make me cry. They said to him, what is it? He said that we used to bury our daughters alive. I said to him, what do you mean? He said, I had a daughter. This daughter, one day, when I felt embarrassment at the fact that she was born into my family, I brought her near the dust. I was wondering to myself, do I keep her with disgrace or do I bury her in the dust? He was an embodiment of those. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدٌ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. When he heard the news, he felt embarrassment. His face darkened. He said, I brought this daughter with the spade, I buried her alive. Therefore you find that here you have a companion of the Holy Prophet who himself mentions that there was a time where burying of our daughters was a norm. Someone will ask, well, if they buried all their daughters, how can you then have mothers in Arabian society? Not everybody buried a daughter. Notice the Quran states, you either keep it in disgrace or you bury it in the dust. There were some who kept their daughters, but in a state of disgrace. There were others, no. They made sure that they buried their daughter alive. That's why the Quran replied with the verse to these people. In Surah Al-Takwir, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. On the day of judgment, the female baby will ask, why was I buried alive? Notice those who attack the religion of Islam as being a religion which doesn't help woman and oppresses woman. Notice how the religion reformed the rights of those females. That these females were being buried alive. The religion came forward and said that on the day of judgment, the day of accountability, we will allow the female to ask, why was I buried alive? For which crime? Which crime have I committed that I deserve to be buried in the dust? That's why this verse, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ, made Ammar ibn Yasir's life change completely. Ammar ibn Yasir, his parents Yasir and Sumayya, changed towards the religion of Islam the moment this verse was revealed. That the female baby asked, why was I buried alive? Because Ammar ibn Yasir was one of the earliest converts to the religion of Islam. But in those early days, when you became a Muslim, you can't go out and tell everybody I've become a Muslim. You had to keep it a secret. The companions used to meet up with the Holy Prophet in a house by the name of Dar al-Arqam. You'd meet up in that house. Jibreel would reveal a verse to the Prophet. The Prophet would come from the cave. He would tell his companions, this verse has been revealed to me today. The companions would discuss the context of the verse with the Prophet, and then they'd leave to go home. Many of them, their parents did not know that they had become Muslims. The narration states to us what happened. The narration said Ammar went home that day. When Ammar went home, he entered the house. When he entered his house, his parents used to have an idol in the house. When he entered the house, his shoulder brushed the idol fell and broke. His father Yasir said to him, Ammar, you've just killed God. He looked at him and he said, Dad, did you hear what you just said to yourself or no? So what do you mean? He said, you just said to me, I've killed God. But if this God is meant to be powerful, how can I have killed him? His mother said to him, how dare you speak in this way? Who has taught you to speak like this? He has said, my Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She said to him, what else has Muhammad taught you? The reply was, today we just came from a revelation which said that on the day of judgment the female will ask, why was I buried alive? Sumayya began to cry. He looked at her and said, Mom, why are you crying? What have I just said? His dad Yasir looked at him and he said to him, Ammar, do you not know that your mother had 2 elder sisters before she gave birth to you? Your mother had 2 elder sisters before she came to the world. These 2 elder sisters were buried alive by your grandfather. But the second one, as he was hitting her to bury her alive, as he was hitting her, he looked at her making an involuntary movement. Because you know, babies make involuntary movements. That baby made an involuntary movement as he was hitting her. He looked at that second baby and he said, I promise if God grants me another child, I will not bury her alive. That third daughter was your mother, Sumayya. And so Sumayya looked at him and she said to him, if Muhammad is the one who is saying that the right of the child is that they are not buried alive, then me and your father will join the religion of Rasulullah. And they joined the religion. And the first martyrs in the religion of Islam was whom? Yasir and Sumayya. Therefore you found that the verse had an effect. But the beauty of what Islam did was that it reversed the whole situation. The Arabs used to say the woman can't help you in war. And a woman can't help you in business. And a woman, if she marries enemies of yours and they become in-laws, then you're going to be embarrassed. Do you know how Islam reversed the situation? Islam showed you that a woman can be a better warrior than some men. And that a woman can bring you business better than other men. And that some women, when they marry in-laws of yours who are enemies, those enemies may treat her better than your friends. What do we mean? In the battle of Uhud, when Rasulullah was stranded on the mountain, and Ali ibn Abi Talib was the only man who stayed behind with him, didn't the companions of Rasulullah, some of them run away? Did they run away or no? As in the Quran, it clearly mentions that they ran away and they left the Prophet alone. These were men, weren't they? Supposedly. They were men who were meant to be great warriors, who were meant to be the bravest of fighters. But these men, where were they? Were they there or no? No, they ran away. As in you find later on, they admit that on the day of Uhud, we ran away. Ali ibn Abi Talib was left alone with Rasulullah. Do you know who helped Ali ibn Abi Talib and Rasulullah on that mountain? A lady by the name of Al-Harithiyya. Al-Harithiyya saw them stranded. She ran towards that mountain and she went and helped the 2 of them. She went and helped them like no other soldier helped them. The Arabs used to say the woman can't fight. On the day of Uhud, one woman's performance was better than half the men who were there. That's number one. Number two, the Arabs used to state that the woman, business-wise, she's not as sharp as the men. Was there anyone better than Khadija in the businesses of Arabia? Was there anybody who was achieving success on the business front like Khadija? No, there wasn't. History testifies that Khadija, her wealth had accumulated to a level she was in charge of the whole industry. Number three, that I might have my daughter marrying my enemy, and it will be an embarrassment for me. Abu Sufyan's daughter, Habiba. Habiba was married to Ubaidullah ibn Jahash. When they went to Africa, Ubaidullah fell in love with a Christian girl. When he fell in love with the Christian girl, he left Islam and married the Christian. Habiba was left alone with nobody to look after her. Who was it that married Habiba? Rasulullah. Rasulullah, how was his relationship with Abu Sufyan? Good or bad? It was bad. To Abu Sufyan, I fear a day when my daughter will marry in-laws who will treat her badly. Rasulullah treated her better than anybody else did. Right. He didn't take into consideration that Abu Sufyan is an enemy. No. Abu Sufyan has his own role in the world. His daughter has her own role in the world. Right. To the extent that this Habiba, when her father would come to the house, he'd sit on the rug, she'd remove the rug. She'd say, don't sit on the rug which Rasulullah sits on. Right. Sit on any other rug, but do not sit on the rug which the Holy Prophet sits on. Right. Therefore, Islam reversed the whole situation. That you used to mock these children, saying that they can't help you in war, and they can't bring wealth, and they will be an embarrassment. On the contrary, look at those children. That's why the Quran said, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ نحن نرزقهم وإياكم إن قتلهم كان خطأ كبيرا. Do not kill your children out of fear of poverty. We will provide them with sustenance, and with you with sustenance. Right. Notice how a child in Islam is a form of rizq. Whenever you hear the word rizq, you always think money. Straight away, may Allah increase your rizq. What's rizq? Money. Your wealth is a rizq. Your health can sometimes be a greater rizq than your wealth. A child is a greater rizq than all of them. Do you know why? Because at the end of the day, there are people on this earth, however much they try, they cannot have children. When Allah gives you a child, do you think Allah gives everybody children? There are people who are the best of humans on this earth, and they've been given more money than me and you put together, yet they can't have a child. They tried their hardest, they cannot have a child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Arabs understand one thing, that when I'm giving you a child, that's a form of sustenance from me. Do not neglect it. Do not abuse it. I want you to honor it. And mind you, I'll tell you something, you'd think that the burying of daughters alive was only in those days. That those were the days of Jahiliyyah. There's no Jahiliyyah today. In Surah 33, verse 33, وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَ تَبَرَّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى. Imam al-Baqir was asked, why does Allah say Jahiliyyat al-Ula? Why does God say the first Jahiliyyah? Imam said, because there's going to be a second Jahiliyyah, and a third Jahiliyyah, and a fourth Jahiliyyah. In those days, they bury their daughters alive. Today you have a concept called abortion. Isn't it the same Jahiliyyah? In those days, the idea would be get the daughter and bury her alive. Today, I don't want this child in my life. I wasn't planning for it. What then happens? I abort the child. In some stats, every 6 minutes in the world there is an abortion. Every 6 minutes in the world there is an abortion taking place. Is this not the same female infanticide? Isn't it the same Jahiliyyah? You'll find not only that, there's child abuse happening in certain countries which claim that they represent the religion of Islam. They claim that they represent the two holiest shrines in the religion of Islam. Outside those shrines, have you seen those beggars, children? Young beggars, some of them without hands. You've seen the film Slumdog Millionaire? The idea in the slums of India, there are children who are begging, there are children who are being abused. Is not that the same Jahiliyyah which has come back again? That there are children who are abused emotionally, physically, sexually. Religious figures who take out their frustration on children in the choir. And they tell me celibacy is a way of getting closer to Allah. That's the way. Yet that Jahiliyyah idea of abuse was there. Rasulullah sought to reform this idea of children and the way children were being abused through a number of ways. The first way is his behavior with children. Why? Because I can't come and tell the world you should be good with your children when I'm the worst with my children. Rasulullah, when he sought to reform the rights of children, first he reformed it through his behavior with children. How? Al-Aqra' means bald head, as in someone who's proud to call himself, or his parents called him the bald head. Al-Aqra' says, I was walking with Rasulullah one day, and when I was walking with Rasulullah on that day, I saw him kissing his grandson Hassan. I looked at him and I said to him, Ya Rasulullah, I've got 10 kids, I haven't kissed one of them my whole life. You know, staunch Arab, if I kiss, I'm now becoming a bit feminine, so I'm not going to kiss in front of anyone. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, I've got 10 kids, I've never kissed any of them. You kiss your grandson in this way? Rasulullah made it clear. He who doesn't show mercy to his children, Allah will not show mercy to him on the day of judgment. It's a display of mercy and affection. If you show mercy to your children, Allah will show mercy. Then what did he say? He said at that moment that God loves Al-Hasan and I love the one who loves Al-Hasan. You find that's one narration. A second narration which comes forward and states that one of the companions says, I was walking with Rasulullah to the market of Qaynuqa. When we were walking on this market, on our way back of walking from this market, Rasulullah had to pass the house of his daughter Fatima. When he passed the house, he'd knock on the door and he couldn't wait for his grandson Hassan to run towards him. And then he'd hug him and he'd kiss him, and again he'd make it clear that, oh Allah, I love him and I love the one who loves him. Again he would show this affection. A third incident, a child is given to Rasulullah. That child urinated the drops on Rasulullah's clothing. The father was there. At that moment when the father saw it, it wasn't just a sense of embarrassment. The father wanted to grab the child and hit him. Rasulullah said, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? He said, this is just some clothes. I can give it to someone, they will wash it. This child done something involuntary, you want to hit him? What has he done wrong? You expect to put the responsibility of an adult on a child? If the child has urinated these drops on my clothing can be washed. Don't come and attack your child in this way. Number 4, when his daughter Fatima at that young age would walk into a room, he'd stand up for his daughter. In a society where the daughter used to be buried alive, Fatima walks in, he would stand up. Then he'd say she's the mother of her father. That's the position of Fatima. Number 5, when when Rasulullah was in sujood, Aba Abdullah would come and climb at that young age on the back of his grandfather. The narrations would say to us, Rasulullah would not get up from sujood until Aba Abdullah moved. Why? Because he didn't want to hurt the feelings of Aba Abdullah. Notice, something so simple, yet Rasulullah was enacting it to show the parents in Arabian society that I'm your prophet. When I'm your prophet, your kids urinated on me, I didn't do anything. When I see my grandsons, it's the greatest moment of my day. When I see Hassan, I see Hussein, I want to show my love towards them. I want you to display this love as well towards your children. And that's why he made it clear. He said, your children have rights over you. In the same way you have rights over your children. Arba'in 2009, this year, I've got a lecture on the rights of the father, where we've explained the rights of the father over the children. But what's the rights of the children over the father? Rasulullah stipulated the rights, and it's of the utmost importance that we implement them into our life. The first right of your child in the religion of Islam is that you give your child a good name. Someone will say, well, that's common sense. And I know I have to give my child a good name. In Arabian society, it certainly wasn't common sense. No. And many of you would have heard the narrations. In Arabian society, you had certain fathers who called their son Shaitan. Assalamu alaikum, Shaitan. How are you today? There are, of course, some who behave like Shaitan, but to actually call him Shaitan, Shaitan, come here, bring me the food, please, Shaitan. Another father who would call his son Dhalim. Dhalim, where are you? Dhalim, the oppressor. So that's the only name you could think when the child was born? I want to name him the oppressive one. You find these names, unfortunately, were given to certain children. Instead of good traits, like the generous, or the one who is patient, or the one who is, for example, kind, they would name their children with these names. The Holy Prophet would come and state, give your children good names. Do not give them these names. Umar ibn al-Khattab, on one occasion, somebody came towards him with his son next to him. He said to him, "O second caliph, I have a problem with my son and he's being rude to me. I want you to punish him." Umar looked at the child. He said to him, "Speak for yourself." The child said, "I want to ask you a question, O caliph. What's the right of the child on his father?" The second caliph said that the right of the child on his father is what? Number one, that the father gives a good name. Number two, that the father chooses a mother from a good family. Number three, that the father teaches the child Quran. He said, "Do you know what my father named me?" He said, "No." He said, "My name is Beetle." A beetle. Of all the animals in the world, you can name a lion, you can name a tiger, a beetle. So what do you have a fascination with a beetle to name your son a beetle? He said that my name is a beetle. Of all the names, the name of embarrassment. I walk around the what's your name? Beetle. That's on the first level. He said, as for my mother, she has no interest in the religion whatsoever. As for the Quran, he hasn't told me any of the words of the Quran. Notice the name has an effect on the child. The name has an effect whether you like it or no. Yet our sixth Imam makes something very clear. That if you name your child a name, make sure they act and represent that name. Why? How many Muhammads do you have today who do not act anything like Rasulullah? How many Alis do you have today who do not act in any way like the son of Abu Talib? How many Fatimas do you have today who love Fatima al-Zahra yet do not honor the hijab of Fatima? How many Zainabs, how many Sukainas and Ruqayyas who show their love and their tears in the nights of Muharram? You come towards them and you say, "But how about the scarf of that lady?" That can wait. I want to cry about the tragic part of the story. If it's about tragic stories, I can give you many. Last Samurai was tragic, and Braveheart was tragic, Gladiator was tragic. There's many tragic. I'm telling you, if you want to cry, I can show you some great films to cry on. But it's not about tears. It's about following that message of who you're named after. When I'm named after Fatima or Zainab or Muhammad or Ali, my role is to honor those names, so that when somebody asks me, "What's your name?" and I say, "I am Ja'far," he says, "Truly Ja'far ibn Sadiq was a great man." Not he says, "What type of character must Ja'far al-Sadiq be? If this Ja'far behaves in this way." Because Imam al-Sadiq one day was walking, he saw this person with his child. He said to him, "What's his name?" He said, "Muhammad." As soon as he heard this, he bowed his head and he recited the salawat on Muhammad and al Muhammad. Allahumma salli. Then he said, make sure that that child acts like Rasulullah, represents the akhlaq of Rasulullah. When a person's given the name of Ahlul Bayt, and his tongue is a filthy tongue, and his attitude is an arrogant attitude, then what reflection does that have on the Imams of Al Muhammad? Because know one thing, the name preserves teachings without a shadow of doubt. What sense of pride do you have when you go to a country and you ask them, "What's your name?" and you hear the names Hassan and Hussein? Even if that person belongs to another school in Islam, doesn't it bring pride in you, that moment? What's your name? Hassan and Hussein. "Oh, but you're from another school in Islam." Doesn't matter. Their names are being preserved. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi on Eid al-Adha, the Eid of sacrifice. He asked his governor, "What do people do on Eid al-Adha?" They said to him, "People sacrifice animals." He said, "Very good. Go and sacrifice anyone called Hassan and anyone called Hussein." Sacrifice anyone called Hassan, anyone called Hussein. This is a day of sacrifice. I don't want to know if someone called Hassan or Hussein. Wasn't there the story of the man who went to Sham years after the Umayyad Empire? The man who went to Sham, he said, I saw everybody. Nobody had a son from the names of Al Muhammad. Ali ibn Abi Talib for sure, nobody named a son after him. But at least Hassan or Hussein, surely somebody would name a name. He said, I reached my friend's house. When I reached my friend's house, I asked him. I was in the house. All of a sudden I heard him, "Hassan, Hussein, come and say salam to your uncle." He said, I looked at him and I thought to myself, Alhamdulillah, somebody has named their child Hassan and Hussein. So he said, I said to him that. He said to me, what do you mean, alhamdulillah? He said, but you named them after the grandsons of Rasulullah. I said, yes. So that whenever I am angry with them, I curse Hassan and I curse Hussein. That name was a legacy. It was to be preserved by us. That when you have the chance to name your children, name them after one of the Imams of Al Muhammad, or name them after a good attribute. If you're named Ihsan, act with Ihsan. If you're named Jawad, act with Jawad, with generosity. If you're named Kadhim, Kadhim means what? The one who is patient when he should be angry. Imam al-Kadhim, why was he called Kadhim? Because he was so patient when he should have been angry. He was taken to 4 prisons in his life. One prison to another. He never once said a word of anger. Always he was patient wherever he was taken. When you are called Kadhim, honor the name. The first right of the child, the right of being given a good name. Number 2, the right to have been given a good education. Which education? You have in the Muslim world today many who spend on their children's education. How much they spend? Many who spend tens of thousands of dollars on their kids' education. Which education? Secular education. Maths, physics, chemistry, biology, the sciences, the arts. They spend thousands. They send them to the best of schools. This is vital, without a doubt. The child deserves the right to a great education. What did you get in chemistry? I got the top grade. In biology, I got the top grade. In physics, I got the top grade. In the humanities, I got the top grade. Can you tell me 5 stories about the life of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam? Sorry? 5 stories, that's all I want. Just tell me 5 stories. And to tell you the truth, I don't really have time to read these things. It's a busy period for me. The degree for this world, you're getting them one after another. But how about the degree for the hereafter? As in, when you were told that the right of your child is a good education, what, only secular education? That's it? Tell them, Imam al-Kadhim, give me about 10 stories about his life. I want to learn about his life. Give me a story. I can't give you a story, I'm sorry. What do you mean you can't give me a story? Where is that right for your child to be educated religiously as well as secularly? In the Muslim world today, people are pumping money for secular education. Alhamdulillah, that's vital. We need people in the educational and the academic world. People who can go and get the best jobs. But how about religious education? When you come to a follower of the school of Ahlul Bayt, a person who honors himself that he comes from the school of Musa ibn Ja'far or Muhammad al-Jawad, and you come and ask them, or you come and ask her, could you give me a story about that Imam? I'm sorry, I can't. So what's the point of all the BScs and MScs and PhDs? If you don't have a degree in the teachings of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, you gain the knowledge secular, no problem, gain that knowledge. But the Imams of Al Muhammad, where is your knowledge for them? There's going to be a day when you have children. Are you ready to educate them with the Imams or no? Or is it simply a case if my child asks me a question, I'll go to Maulana. Maulana will answer the question. Every follower of Ahlul Bayt should be a Maulana. Every follower. But some of them may speak on pulpits and other may just have jobs. But the reality is we have stressed so much on the right to secular education. But how about religious education? And I tell you, there's no excuse these days. There's no excuse. When the lectures in the Middle East were in Arabic, the youth used to say, we don't understand Arabic. Can you make them English? So they made them into English. When the lectures in the Indo-Pak subcontinent were in Gujarati or in Urdu or in any of these languages, they said, can you change them into English? So they changed them into English. On the internet today, there's thousands of English lectures and from many speakers who are serving the school of Ahlul Bayt. When you buy an iPod or an iPhone, to listen to who? When all these lectures are available for your son or for your daughter, go to the websites, download the lectures, let them on their way to college, on their way to uni, not listen to rubbish. Let them listen to that which will bring them closer to Ahlul Bayt. How many times in question and answer sessions, I want to ask you a question about this topic. It's been lectured on 2 years ago. I want to ask you a question on that topic. It was lectured on 3 years ago. I want to give a lecture on this topic. It was given 5 years ago. But it's your role to go out and learn. There was a time where you had an excuse not to be religious. Not in this generation, no. In this generation, all of your parents' languages which you complained, you couldn't understand, it's all become English. What's now the excuse? What's the excuse now? When your son or your daughter has a right to education, religious education, it's your role to ensure that they are given the religious and the secular. Abu Hanifa, you find 31% of the Muslim world follows the Hanafi fiqh. Why is he called Abu Hanifa? Why is he not called Abu Hanif? As in, why is he not named after a daughter? And why is he named after his daughter? Why not after the son? In Arabic tradition, normally you name after the son. So for example, you find that Amir al-Mu'mineen was called Abu al-Hasan. True? Abu Hanifa, why is he called after a daughter? It's not Arabic tradition. Normally, he should be named after his eldest son. The reason he called himself after his daughter was because she once gave him a piece of religious knowledge that changed him. His daughter Hanifa, her dad, who was the master of fiqh of the people of Kufa, one day someone came and asked him, how comes men are allowed to marry 4 and women aren't allowed to marry 4? He looked at them, he said, you know, I've never thought of this question. As in, I know the Quran says men are allowed to marry 4 women, but women marrying 4 men, the Quran doesn't give an answer. I really do not know. His daughter came to him, she said, Dad, do you mind if I help you? Because I've read a few texts on this. He said, go ahead, my daughter. She said, Ali ibn Abi Talib has answered the question. So he said to her, where? She said, don't you know the incident when the woman came to Ali ibn Abi Talib? They said to him, why is it that men are allowed to marry 4 and women aren't allowed to marry 4? And Ali ibn Abi Talib told those women, I want you all to do what? I want you all to go and get a bowl each. A bowl of water each. I want you all to go and place it in one big bowl. So when they all went to place it in that one big bowl, it became one big pond of water. They came back to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He now said to them, now I want you to go back to that pond and take out the exact water you put in. You know figuratively what I'm talking about? At that moment they said, well, we can't tell whose water's gone where. And therefore, she said, Dad, Ali ibn Abi Talib has already answered this. Look at that difference in conversation at home. That the father, when he has a right to educate his children, not just so that the community says, MashaAllah, he has a doctor as a son. Oh, MashaAllah, he has a banker as a daughter or a pharmacist. No, rather, MashaAllah, that I have people who are going to use their degrees to serve the religion, but also people who can represent Ahlul Bayt with education. Number 2, the third right, the right to learn the Quran. Learn the Quran not like parrots. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوم. Explain to me, what's the surah about? Well, I don't know. I've read it for years. I've not got a clue what I'm talking about. I've just been told on Thursdays it's got a lot of thawab, and at every wedding, every funeral, every new house opening, old house opening, a house closing, and you read the surah and that will bring you barakah. Tell him, yeah, but what's the surah about? As in, so Allah just recited it and told you to recite the surah? The surah is about Jesus Christ and his disciples. Look at the difference. In one way, the Quran is just a book like any other book. In the next way, I can use Surah Yasin when I discuss with my Christian friends. That there's a surah in this book which talks about Jesus, son of Mary, and his disciples. Notice Allah called the Quran al-dhikr, the reminder. Why? The reason your children have a right to study the Quran is so that book acts as a dhikr for them. It's stored into their hard drive. That whenever an incident or an occasion approaches them, an ayah of the Quran comes in their way. They want to abuse someone, the ayah says don't abuse. They want to be rude, the ayah says don't be rude. They want to be bad to their parents, the ayah comes out. The third right is what? To educate your sons and your daughters on the Quran. Would you believe members of the school of Ahlul Bayt who pride themselves on following Ja'far al-Sadiq sometimes don't pick up the Quran except in the month of Ramadan? Only in the month of Ramadan. The whole year, the Quran's on the shelf, gathering dust. And the Quran speaks on the Day of Judgment. And there's a hadith where the Quran says, Ya Allah, he neglected me, so neglect him today. But then the Quran will see someone else, Ya Allah, he looked after me, so look after him today. There's 2 different types. There is the one who looks after the Quran, there is the one who neglects the Quran. I don't ask children to recite the Quran in parrot fashion, no. Rather go to teachers who can instill the meaning. That's number 3. Number 4, the right to having good akhlaq. Today when you see some of the sons and the daughters in the school of Ahlul Bayt with the filthiest tongues. Sometimes these filthy tongues, when they speak vocally with one another, sometimes on the internet. On the internet, Because what they do now on the internet is they've shortened the swear words, to make it easy for us to curse. So sometimes you want to text, for example, and somebody has sent you an SMS which is funny, so you type 4 letters, LMAO. You're thinking, what's this LMAO? What does he mean? Laughing my something. And you're thinking to yourself, has it become that easy? And you notice from the people laughing, they're thinking, I know, I wrote that down last week as well. You notice that it's become a norm now to curse. The right of akhlaq, when you see your children with the rudest language, to stop that language, to make sure that this tongue, what does Imam say about it? Its weight is so small, its power is so devastating. That tongue you have, the weight of it, go and measure it. It doesn't weigh much. Go and see the power of it. You can either change people or you can break people. Imam says their right is that you teach them with akhlaq. Umar bin Abdul Aziz, when he stopped the cursing of Ali ibn Abi Talib as Umayyad Khalifa, they said to him, what was it that made you stop the cursing? He said, I used to be of those who whenever I used to curse, I'd curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. Imagine, it became normal. If you want to curse, you curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. Today, you have 4-letter words for cursing. In those days, no. Ali ibn Abi Talib. That's the way you curse. He said, we were brought up with filthy attitudes and filthy tongues. Our akhlaq left a lot to be desired. He said, when my teacher taught me Ali ibn Abi Talib, what sacrifices he gave in the Battle of Badr, I realized very well that I was on the wrong way and I changed my akhlaq. That's number 4. Number 5, the right to do what? The right to engage in sporting activities. Rasulullah said, the right of your child, you teach them how to swim, and archery, and horse riding. Today, that could be translated into any sport. Any. Our communities in the Western world today have to change their philosophy when they build a mosque. When they build an imambar. What should be the change? Attach a sports center at the back. Because the right of your child is they engage in sporting activities. If they enjoy basketball, let him play. Baseball, let him play. Soccer, definitely let him play. Other sports, let them play. Allow them to play. Don't come and tell me these people are wasting their time in sports. Because I tell you they can be wasting their time in things more dangerous. When they're engaging in sports, is to keep trim. The Muslim is one who is trim. Not one who looks like he hasn't been to a gym for about 20 years. Someone who's trim. Somebody who's healthy. You think the son of Abu Talib on that battlefield was somebody who was overweight when he sat on his horse? Was he somebody who was trim? Who when he'd hold Dhul Fiqar would be somebody that the archers could not get near, that the horse riders could not get near. Today in Muslim communities, you look around, you feel ashamed. You feel ashamed. That you look around and you find certain people have not looked after themselves at all. Whereas one of the rights of your children according to Rasulullah is what? One of the rights to your children, teach them the sporting activities. Let them remain healthy. I remember one stating originally, when you get married, you see the men. They've got a 6-pack toned. But after a week, it's a 6-pack. 2 cheeseburgers, 2 fries, and cakes. You see all of a sudden the 6-pack keeps going down more and you're thinking, how do I bring it back up again? The problem here is what? The right of that child is you accustom them towards a healthy life. Ahlul Bayt isn't just about spiritual life, meaning I'm going to go and live in a religious country and I'm going to live spiritually. Ahlul Bayt is about physical spirituality as well. That's another right. Another right of your child is that you don't beat them. Amir al-Mu'mineen used to say, a father who beats his child is like a person who puts manure on dry crop. Who puts manure on young crop. What does he mean? He says that that young crop requires itself to grow. When you beat your child, you're putting manure on that young crop. In another hadith of his, he says that he recognizes that there are times you need to advise your child, but don't beat them. He says, treat them like that extra finger if you were to have one on your hand. Listen to this metaphor. He says, imagine you had an extra finger on your hand. Now think about it. If you pull it off, it's going to cause you hurt. And if you leave it there, you're going to dislike it. Likewise with your child. If you just pull him out and throw him away, it's going to hurt you. If you're just going to leave him in the same way, then you're going to dislike his presence. Try and achieve a balancing act, he says. Don't bring up your child necessarily in the same way you were brought up. because their generation may be different from yours. Know that the habits you may have had, it doesn't mean your child has to have. There is a way that when you see this child has done something wrong, Imam says, if you are going to reprimand them, give them time to recover and to think about what they've done, and make sure you don't make them lose their self-esteem. How many people's houses do you go? They tell their son or their daughter, go and bring the food or go and bring the drink. Son goes, there are two types of sons you'll see. There's the one who's calm. When he brings the drink, you think he's a waiter at a restaurant. As he's relaxed, there you go, and you take the drinks. There's one who's shivering, isn't like you look at him and he just can't hold the plate properly. You're looking at him, then you're looking at the dad. The dad's giving him a look you don't want to see at any time in your life. That dad, if the son makes a mistake in the past, he has hurt him in a way where he hasn't recovered. Self-esteem's gone. And a son who loses, or a daughter who loses her self-esteem with the parents, do not be surprised if one day they leave you and they say, don't ever interfere again. Because there was a time when you attacked me, and I might have been wrong, but you attacked me in a way I lost all my self-esteem. I had no confidence ever again because of that. Ali ibn Abi Talib says, that extra finger that you have, you can't just leave it there. You're not going to like the look of it. Nor do you just pull it off, it's going to hurt you. You need to achieve a balancing act. But don't put manure on young crop. No. Try and achieve a balancing act with that child. That's why our 60 Imam says the next right of your child is that you engage in dialogue with them. Dialogue means what? Means any issue. I engage in dialogue with my son or with my daughter. They have a question mark about imamate, let's discuss. Not how dare you question. You've got a question, let's discuss. I have a question mark about some of our traditions in Muharram. Let's discuss. I don't mind. I have a question mark about some of the issues in the school of Ahlul Bayt theology. Let's discuss. I don't mind. Because a person with knowledge isn't scared to discuss. It's the one without knowledge who wants them to keep quiet. If you don't have the knowledge, recommend them to someone good, but don't tell them don't ask. Never. Never. Because when you say don't ask, you are showing you have a weakness. The right of your child is that you engage in dialogue with them and allow them to do what? Allow them to ask and give their opinions, and you don't force them into any other opinion, but that you allow them to make their choices in their life. Of course, the religion of Islam is the religion of submission. You submit to what Allah orders, but you engage in dialogue with them. Therefore, you find with all these rights, the greatest of parents are those who honor those rights with their children. And arguably the last right which Rasulullah talks about is what? That when your child reaches an age where they are able to get married, you then marry them off. If you don't and they commit sins, the sins are on your shoulders. That's the hadith. If your child can get married and you don't help them, when they commit a sin, it's on your shoulders. Because you had the ability to get them married, but you didn't. You should encourage it. Because the source of pride for any parent is that they see their child married one day. Is that they are able to see that son or that daughter a day when they are smiling, a day when they are blessed, a day of happiness for their upbringing. How hard must it have been for Sayyida Zainab when she saw her two sons at that tender young age not getting married and slayed on the grounds of Karbala. As in, it's the dream of every father and every mother to have their children married, and it's the right of those children. Yet Aun and Muhammad were still very young when they came towards the 10th of Muharram. Like anybody's dream, Sayyida Zainab would have dreamt that her children would get married. Yet Sayyida Zainab only saw what Karbala had done to her children. Indeed, it wasn't just Aun and Muhammad in the idea of them getting married. It wasn't just them who gave their lives away towards their mother's cause, no, towards their father. Their father, Abdullah ibn Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, Ja'far al-Tayyar's son. Their father was a man of generosity, a man of honor. But their father couldn't be at Karbala. He sent his sons as his representatives. The narrations state to us that the final words they said to their dad was, "Oh dad, do not worry, we will return inshaAllah." How ironic those words were when they came towards the 10th of Muharram. One, according to certain narrations, aged 11, another 9. Another narration says one aged 13, the other 11. They came towards their mother on the 10th of Muharram. Their mother came towards them. She said to them, "Oh my sons, I expect you to be valiant like all of the other sons. And I expect you to be amongst those who help your uncle Aba Abdullah al-Hussein." They replied to their mother, "Oh mother, why do you worry? Do not worry. Do you not know that from one side we are the grandsons of Ali, and from the other side we are the grandsons of Ja'far al-Tayyar? Oh mother, do not worry." The narration state that on the 10th of Muharram, the companions of Aba Abdullah had all passed away one after another. It was now the turn of the sons of Bani Hashim to come and give their lives away to the message of Aba Abdullah. And then the sons of Bani Hashim, Aun and Muhammad, came towards their uncle, and they said to their uncle, "Allow us to go out and defend you today." Their uncle said to them, "Oh my dear nephews, I do not allow you to go out and fight." They said to him, "Why?" He said to them, "Because I want you to protect your mother, Sayyidah Zainab. I want you to be alongside your mother." When their mother saw the companions having given their lives away, their mother knew that it was now the turn of the sons. Then their mother saw Aun and Muhammad. Sayyidah Zainab looked at them and she said to them, "I expected you to give your lives away. Why is it that you are here standing next to me?" They began to cry and they said to their mother, "Oh my dear mother, we went to our uncle. We said to him we want to give our lives away, but he said, 'I do not allow you because you are so young. I want you to protect your mother, Sayyidah Zainab.'" Sayyidah Zainab walked towards Aba Abdullah. When she came towards him, she said to him, "Aba Abdullah, why didn't you allow my sons to go out and fight?" He replied to her, "Oh my dear Zainab, because they are so young and I want them to protect you." She said to him, "Aba Abdullah, do you not remember the battle of Siffin, when our younger brother Abu Fadl al-Abbas came out on the battlefield? Do you not remember the smile that it brought to my father Ali ibn Abi Talib when he saw Abbas coming out in the way that Abbas did?" He said to her, "Yes, I remember." She said to him, "In the same way our father was so young, Aun and Muhammad are the same age. I want you to allow them to go out and fight." He began to cry at that moment, but then she said something to him which completely changed his mind. She said, "Aba Abdullah, I do not want to be embarrassed in front of our mother Fatima Zahra, that every mother has given away her children except me. I want to give away my sons as well." That completely changed his mind. He called them towards him. When they came towards him, he allowed them to go out on the battlefield. Brothers and sisters, imagine the scene. If it's an adult, you could say the adult is experienced on the battlefield. But these were two young men going out alone on the battlefield. That the armor was even bigger than them when they were coming out. When they came out, they defended Aba Abdullah. Each one, if someone came to strike Aun, Muhammad would defend him. If someone came to strike Muhammad, Aun would defend him. Umar ibn Sa'd at this moment, he called out. He said, "Do not fight these one-on-one." They said to him, "Why?" He said, "They are the grandsons of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You do not fight them one-on-one. I want you to fight them and surround them." Imagine these two young men, they were surrounded by the soldiers. One of the soldiers came to attack Muhammad. Aun put his body in the way. When the other came to attack Aun, Muhammad put his body. Muhammad was killed. Aun, when he was on the ground, he called out, "Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah." He also called out, "Assalamu alayka ya Aba Fadl al-Abbas." Why? Because Abbas had trained him as a swordsman. Aba Abdullah ran out towards Aun. Aun was on the ground. When Aba Abdullah came near him, he saw him lying. He said, "Oh my uncle Aba Abdullah, I want
want you to send a message to my mother, Sayyidah Zainab. Abu Abdullah said to him, what is it? He said, I want you to tell her that I never went to drink from the river Furat because I knew that you haven't drunk any water. So I remained thirsty and I ensured that I didn't drink any. Abu Abdullah, when he returned with their bodies back to the tent, Sayyidah Zainab, she looked at their bodies, but would you believe Sayyidah Zainab didn't cry when she saw the bodies? All she did, she went down in prostration. She said, oh Allah, accept this sacrifice. But when did she cry? When she returned back to Medina. After Kufa and after Sham and after Karbala, she returned back to Medina. When she returned back to Medina, she returned back to her husband Abdullah ibn Ja'far. He said to her, where are Aun and Muhammad? Where are my flowers on this earth? She didn't say a word. She entered the house. When she entered the house, she still hadn't cried until she entered their bedroom. She then saw 2 empty mattresses. She began to cry. Oh my dear sons, I didn't cry because Hussein had nobody to cry for him. Oh my dear sons, I would have cried, but I had to keep strong in front of Abu Abdullah. Oh my dear sons, it hurts me that when I come home now, I see your mattresses, yet I do not see the flowers on those mattresses.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst their companions and those who follow their message. Ya Allah, allow us to protect the rights of the children in the religion of Islam. Raise us with the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allow us to be amongst those who follow his message and receive his intercession. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Surah Al-Fatiha, but before the loudest of your salawat.